All right, for the hourglass quilt blocks, you are going to need to cut your squares out. I've got 2 backgrounds and then 2 squares for my blocks, and I'm going to, on the wrong side of the background piece, line my ruler up from corner to corner, and then I'm going to draw a line. Once I have that line drawn, I'm going to do right sides together with my other fabric, and I'm going to stitch on both sides of the drawn line using a 1/4 inch seam. And I'm going to repeat that for the other 2 pieces as well. All right, now that we have those sewn, so we've got our seam on both sides of the drawn line, we are going to cut these in half right on that drawn line, and we'll end up with 2 half square triangles. So what you will want to do now is press them. Now that we have them pressed, we're going to pair them up, but before that, we are going to take one of the pieces on the wrong side and we are going to draw a line again from corner to corner, and then repeat that for the other set. This is again going to be our cut line, and we'll be sewing on both sides of the drawn line. So what we want to make sure prior to sewing this is that when you pull this one side down, you've got the pinks are opposite, or your color is opposite with your background. So those all need to be opposite each other. Because you pressed this to the dark, you're going to feel that those seams are going to kind of just nest right into each other. And if you want, you can go ahead and pin it so it kind of stays together. Then you can pin the outside edges as well. We're going to take this to the sewing machine. We're going to repeat the same process. We're going to sew on both sides of that drawn line 1/4 inch, and then we're going to cut on that drawn line. All right, now that we have our both lines sewn, we are going to cut them on the drawn line. So we end up with a total of 4 hourglass quilt blocks. So now, now we can open them up and we see that the backgrounds are opposite, the colors are opposite, and that center looks really good. So now we can press these, and if we need to do any kind of trimming or squaring up, we would do that after we press. After we have our hourglass blocks sewn, we are going to make sure that they are the correct size by trimming them down prior to our next step. And the next step is to lay our rectangles on opposite sides that are the small ones, and we're going to sew them down on both sides. Then we're going to give them a good press, and I press to the outside on these. So we're taking our smaller hourglass blocks and we're just going to be giving them kind of some space around the outside and make them a little larger for the quilt. So the next step is to take our next 2 rectangular pieces, and we're going to be placing them on the edge. If you need to pin them in place, that's fine. And sew these 2 both sides. Make sure right sides are together. So we're going to sew those 2 on the opposite sides as well. Now that I have my 2 sides sewn to the block, I've got all my space that I'm looking for. I'm just going to open those up and give them a good press. And then I'm going to check the size just in case and do any kind of trimming or squaring up if I need. The space area outside is really helpful in that you can be a little bit wonky on this part, but you do want to square them up prior to the next step.